All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled Haymarket Planning Commission meeting for June. Roll call, please.
Cottle.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
Canty. Passanello.
Here.
J. Carroll.
Here.
M. Carroll. Here.
All right, if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right. Well, good evening to everybody on this beautiful day. It's too nice a day to have a meeting. Should have a provision we can cancel if the weather's in the low 70s in June. So anyway, yeah, I hear you. All right, so first order of business is to approve the minutes. So if you could just take a quick glance at that. Is this your copy? Is this your copy?
I have one.
Okay.
Do you have one?
I do.
It's actually-
Okay, the only thing I see in this, and just a question, on citizens' time, we had more than 2 people speak. We actually had 8 people, but it's just showing 2.
For that,
Okay, I stand corrected. I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to vote two, something came up on council that, should I abstain since I was not here, or can I still vote? Even though, okay.
I have a recommendation here for the approval of the minutes.
I recommend that we approve the minutes from the town council meeting of May the 17th.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion?
Planning Commission.
Thank you. All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Carries. All right. All right, this time, citizens' time. We welcome our citizens here. That's who we're serving. So if you're here, if you just step to the podium, give us your name and address. And if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, we would appreciate it. So any citizen.
Jim Payne, 15073 Valhalla, also 6680 Fayette Street, A Dog's Day Out. The reason I'm up here tonight is to talk about the Crossroads Village Center. I was at the last, public hearing, spoke about it as well, and I think I was the only one that spoke in favor of it with no reservations. And the reason I did that is not because I didn't hear the chain link fence and all the other little nuances, but I know that the ARB is going to take care of that. So I was not worried about that. That's the ARB's job. But the whole area is B2 zoned, an ordinance that was looked at, I guess, a year ago or so. I guess Councilman Leak has better grasp of the exact date. But it was B2 zone. And in B2, I mean, you can't have a hotel. You can't have an automotive shop, not necessarily a Piedmont Tire, but an Advanced Auto or something like that. And you can't have fast food by right. Now, if the hotel, you can squabble about how high it is or or whatnot, but they can have that. And to say it's not part of a walking town, nobody walks to a hotel. They just don't. They'll come there and they'll go to your events, they'll go to weddings, they'll go to the winery, and they'll go out to Foster's or wherever they happen to go. And so, you know, they benefit and you benefit, because I think hotels have a 7% tax and food might have a 3%. I don't know the numbers, that someone else can quote you the regs all day long, I'm sure. But I think that this project, and I know that the town and the applicant are going to work together to make concessions. I know both sides are probably not going to get everything they want, but I think they can bring a lot to this town. Right now, I've heard green space. Right now, it's just a big field. There's a lot of green space, but it needs to be developed. And I think you have someone that's willing to work with you to try to make the town better and to provide some services that are needed in this town, and to provide some infrastructure that I believe is probably much needed. So with that, thank you for listening to me, and hope you guys have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jeremiah Solberg. I live at 6917 Jockey Club Lane, here at Haymarket.
Could you just say your last name again?
Solberg, S-A-H-L-B-E-R-G.
Thank you.
I'm a little concerned about the new Crossroads project that's coming into town, and I'm specifically here and opposed to the special use permits for the drive-through restaurants. I've been in this town for 17 years, and I certainly understand the need to continue to develop and have progress and work in hand with developers and citizens alike to get the right kind of businesses here to help support the town. And this area is going to continue to grow, so I fully understand that. But after watching the replay last month on the website and seeing that we're trying to push through a special use permit for 6 different businesses, and 3 of them being drive-through restaurants, that's the part that I'm most concerned about. I'm all for restaurants. I frequent Foster's and Hidden Jewels and anything else. You know, Cava, I'm a big fan of, but drive-through restaurants, I have no desire to have any more drive-through restaurants in town. It's not something that me as my family, we go to McDonald's. We don't walk up to those types of restaurants. We walk into Foster's and other types of restaurants. So I agree that the town needs to make progress, but I'm for the development of smart development in this town. I just don't think that drive-through restaurants is smart development. It doesn't fit with what I consider to be the Haymarket town that I've lived here for almost 17 years. That's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, someone else.
Good evening, Commissioners. Marshant Schneider, 14811 Rising Sun Lane. Great thing about watching this online is I can run down and then run back home. So just to follow up to last month, I remember I said generally the rule of thumb is who, what, by whom, and when. Looking through the proffers again, I still would suggest that there be some clear set of standards and responsibilities and clarity. Phasing by what units I'm going through the proffer statement. Sorry I didn't have more time to prepare for it. Parks and Recreation, we're still saying we'll reserve an open space for possible recreation of tot lots. My recommendation would be size of that space, what the amenities include, who's going to be built by, and you would probably want it about midway through the development. Having stuff tied to the end, like the 79th permit, if they never develop the 79th unit, you know, you got the improvement. So again, this is not meant to be adversarial. It's just, let's say they sell off parts of the project to somebody else. The intent may be lost. That person comes in and says, it's, you know, I expect to be able to do it at my discretion unless otherwise stated. Or if a town comes in and says, we expect it earlier, that's not what the commitment stated. So these are really things to help solidify what that is. Transportation improvements, it talks about a number of improvements as part of phase 1, but again, when? Do we want the sidewalks open before halfway through the residential units are completed? Do we want to, for instance, looking at conditions for the special use permits? yes, a drive-through is inherently a drive-through, but if we want the option for people to walk up, do you expect to have some of those pedestrian improvements in place before those special use permits are online? So I was going to try to mark up, and I can do that later. If you're going to be discussing it later, I'll email you some of my suggestions and copy the applicant as well. I still think there's some elements there that are worth kind of working through. Buffering and screening, again, if you're going to do enhanced screening, my suggestion would be time to identify that now. What's the screen going to be along the backside of the residential units? What's the extent of that buffer? When's it going to be planted? Who's going to maintain it? These are all tools that I think that most jurisdictions use, and I think would be the benefit of both the applicant and the town. Same thing with the crosswalks. When do you expect to have it open? The brick sidewalks. The warrant studies, I would say as well. The warrant studies, my experience has been, the applicant submits a warrant study by this permit or by this date to VDOT or to the town, and the result of that warrant study, when do you open it? So you submit the warrant study by X. If the light's warranted, that light needs to be installed before Y. So having that little more clarity in the proffers. Also with the special use permits, I said last time, does it make sense to look at John Marshall Commons to see where their traffic study looked at? It may drop the overall trips that may impact this development. But each of these special use permits come online, my suggestion would be as a condition, checking in on that warrant. When the first special use permit for a fast food comes in, is it warranted then? If not, go to the next one. When the next one comes online, is it warranted then? And so on and so on. Especially, remember Chick-fil-A, some people said, well, we knew what Chick-fil-A was. My experience has been you can have fast food restaurants that don't have a particular user, nor is there anywhere in the criteria that says we prefer McDonald's over Chick-fil-A. That's just not a criteria. But if you want those places to be static, in other words, right now they're in specific places and you don't want them to change, then I would suggest, again, using a condition that says substantial conformance. I was trying to go figure out what I did for Chick-fil-A and what I did for Sheetz. If you go on the meetings tab on the website and just type in Chick-fil-A or type in Sheetz, all those conditions will come up again. They're not particularly exhaustive. It just says, here's the expectation. And oh, by the way, when you go into site plan, that's another thing too. A lot of this detail, I would agree, be worked out at site plan. A lot of your specific parking requirements, a lot of your specific buffers, unless it's something you negotiate as part of this process, a lot of that will take its course when you come back through on the site plan. And the conditions we've implemented before have that trigger. You know, you're generally committed to this, but all these other things you're going to be subject to, and you'll deal with it at the time of site plan. So keep doing the good work. Still think there's potential here. Just wrapping up some details. Thank you, and I got to go home. So see you later.
Thanks.
All right, anyone else? All right, we will close citizens' time. Thank you for your comments. All right, first up here is public hearing, SUP number 2018-008, St. Michael's Academy, 6735 Fayette Street. And Emily, if you don't mind, since there was a late change that came in, to conserve a little time, can you brief the commission on that, please?
Absolutely. So tonight we're here for St. Michael's Academy public hearing. The intent of the application is to remove the temporary trailer located on the site and then move all of the children at the preschool into the existing structure. That's the old parish hall, the historic building there. So originally the SUP was done for the temporary trailer as well as the use of the building as an educational facility. It's a special use permit in our ordinance. So that SUP is going to expire in August of 2018. And so they're looking at doing some interior modifications to the parish hall. So I recommended that they get their new SUP approved for moving all of the children into the existing building. And then part of that SUP, I've also recommended in the staff report, is to put two conditions on it. One that limits the number of children that can safely occupy the existing structure so that in the future we aren't coming back for another trailer. And the second one is to set a firm date that the town expects the trailer to be removed within a reasonable amount of time for them to get their building permits, as well as for them to I guess, sell their trailer and safely get it removed off of the property. So they have submitted a slight amendment. I think of it more as a clarification letter. I've given everybody up there one. I have extra up here for anybody in the audience who would like to see one. They're basically just clarifying what I stated, and they're providing a date that they will have the modular unit removed once the parish hall is completed, with a final move date no later than December 31, 2018. So, do you guys have any questions before?
I just have, so the two conditions would be, you said 68 students, and the modular trailer would be removed by the end of this calendar year. On the 68 students, do you know what the max occupancy is of that building?
That I will have to clarify with the applicant and their architect once they finalize the building plan, but I believe the intent, and I would like Lori Crockett, the principal, to confirm that when she does her presentation. I think their intent is to limit the students based on how many classrooms they have and how many teachers.
Right.
So that will fall within the occupancy anyway.
Well, the reason I ask, if it's 68 and the building holds, let's say, 75, rather than limiting them to
We
68,
can certainly do the 75 or whatever the building holds, we can put it at
right,
that.
because schools grow and kids come, so
Right.
rather than keep coming back and
Mhm.
getting an SUP, it just makes sense to whatever the building,
Right.
what the fire code, max occupancy, I think we would be wise to,
And we can set the conditions so that the number of students is limited to the maximum occupancy according to the Prince William County Building Department, fire marshal, when they set that number. So rather than picking an artificial number tonight, we can set it whatever meets the code that the fire marshal inspects for.
all right, so in my notes, I'm scratching the 68 students and I'm going to change the language to max occupancy per fire code of Prince William County. Okay,
And at this time, I would like to invite up Lori Crockett, the principal of St. Michael's Academy, to give us kind of her presentation on their SUP.
Hi, good evening.
good evening.
Yes, we are in the process, we have worked with an architectural firm, and I do have plans that they've drawn up, but we're right in the permitting process of relocating those children into the main building and just removing the modular altogether. It's not our intention to grow beyond the main building, but we would like to just set a firm number and a plan for the school and just keep it that way forever. That's just how it's going to operate. And year to year, then that way we don't have to come back. That would be fantastic. Currently, we have to wait through the process through the town of Haymarket with the Planning Commission and the town council before we can receive our permit from Prince William County. Our builder that we're working with is Golden Rule Builders. And the plans that they've submitted will take some existing, like one room that's a kitchen that we don't ever use, it's a storage room, and just modifying some offices and rooms and open space to allow some of the students to come back in. So, and we've worked this year with Chief Lands and with Emily. She came out. I know that there were issues with the parking, or with the traffic and the parking. We've since rented space from St. Paul's Church, who rents the parish hall building to us, for our employees to park, so that they're not parking on property that does not belong to St. Michael's Academy. And we rerouted the traffic to alleviate any backing up of cars onto Payne Lane or Fayette Street.
I think last year when you spoke to us, at that time you were considering moving outside of town completely to Vint Hill. Could you clarify that?
Absolutely. We have our elementary located in Vint Hill, but our thought now is that we would just leave our preschool where it is in Haymarket, because we have so many families who said they just didn't want to go.
Okay.
They like Haymarket. They like dropping their child off here. They like the access to 66. They live in Dominion Valley and Piedmont, and this is where they're going to stay. So rather than displacing all of those families, we would just like to run a smaller operation just here in Haymarket to keep them with services.
So this is totally preschool in Haymarket?
Totally preschool.
Well, I'm glad you're staying,
Oh,
personally.
good.
I think it's
3-year-olds
nice
and
for town.
4-year-olds.
Okay.
Could you give us an idea of what the total attendance would be next September?
Max, right now, what we're looking at is 105 students.
Okay, thank you.
So, and that would be, though, there's the possibility of having, that would be during one morning session. There is the possibility of having a PM session for children who don't attend school in the morning. They want to attend their classes maybe later in the day. So that might raise that number, but no more than like 105 at one given time.
Thank you.
And how many teachers?
Currently, right now, we have, well, we have teachers who are in charge of the classroom, and then we have assistants who just generally
Right.
go around and help. Right now, we have about 13 lead teachers. Next year, with this plan, we would have 8.
So, ma'am, you're saying the building will hold 110 students?
Well, they're looking at what they are going to submit to the county, to Prince William County, is 105, what the builder thinks for code. So
Okay.
we'll have to wait and see what the county says.
Okay. So it makes sense to whatever, like we just discussed, set a max limit per the county building code. That way, what I don't want to see is we approve 68 and then they have 80. It's just a waste of time for both parties to keep coming back here, unless you all disagree.
Oh, I see then.
I agree.
Okay.
And Chairman, if I may, before too much more discussion happens, I think we should open it for any citizen comment so that they can have their public hearing.
Okay.
Is that comment?
All right.
So as long, once she's done with her presentation, just.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, do we have any citizen that would like to speak in reference to this SUP? All right, we will close
Now
that
you-
part.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't see any, but maybe I was jumping ahead. All right, any discussion about this comment? Seems pretty straightforward.
It does. I presume there haven't been any traffic issues this year. They've been worked out. That's great.
And Emily was very helpful.
That's great.
Thank you.
So that was a concern last year, so I'm sure that's good that's worked out.
All right, I wrote the notes here. Somebody would make a motion. Here's the beginning of the motion, and when it says insert 2 conditions, here would be the 2 conditions. So who would like to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I make a motion to refer SUP number 2018-008 for St. Michael's Academy to the Town Council with a recommendation for approval with the following conditions. Staff recommending the applicant to limit student attendance to Prince William County's occupancy limits. And secondly, that the applicant maintain current traffic and parking plans. In addition, we recommend that the SUP, that you would return for the SUP if the traffic or parking were to become an issue.
All right, we need something, sir, about the removal of the modular trailer as well.
It's included in the motion, I think.
By a date.
Oh,
December
By
31.
December 31st,
all right, December 31st.
2018.
All right, so we're all
Is that
clear on
enough?
what the conditions are, correct? All right, do we have a second?
I will second. Wait, go right ahead.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any discussion? All right, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Casanella?
Yes.
Connell?
Yes.
M. Carroll?
Yes.
J. Carroll?
Yes.
Shannon?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. I hope the process goes quickly for you.
At least we know who's going to be in that building.
Favorite schools.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so we've covered the SUP, we've covered the St. Michael's Academy staff report. Next up is Crossroads Village Center.
So, since our public hearing 2 weeks ago, the applicant has worked to revise some of the proper statement, the development narrative, the GDP, and they're continuing to work with VDOT. So all the information is in the packet. I'd like to start tonight with you guys if you have questions for me. I know we do have the applicant here. If you guys feel it's necessary or would like to, maybe I even encourage that you have the applicant come up to the podium. You guys can direct questions at them. I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of work with them, discuss some of our concerns that we continue to have, or things that we want to see, or even discuss some of the revisions that have been made. Also, as an update, today we received VDOT's next round of comments, or yesterday, I apologize, the comments were received, and the applicant met this morning with VDOT, and VDOT is content with the recommendations and all of the changes that they will be making. So the applicant is now going to resubmit an updated TIA to VDOT, so I will keep you guys posted on that, but that did just happen in the last 24 hours. So that's not in your packet, but I can make that available for you tonight.
Right. I know we're going to have the continuation meeting on the 18th. We'll open that up. We'll discuss it at that point. We'll take a vote, and then we'll go into our work session. But the overall objections that I had written down before, there seems to be a lot of angst about drive-throughs versus sit-down restaurants that we had a gentleman speak tonight. The tot lot screening, sidewalks, about guaranteed proffers. And you heard a gentleman speak on that tonight. You know, the auto repair and the other by right things, but those were the main objections, and really just came down to guarantee that certain things are going to happen. And there was a lot of talk about people don't want 3 new drive-throughs. So, and I know we had spoken some to the applicant afterwards, so we'll just kind of go from my left around, and then if they could just succinctly get up and say what they've done to address these issues and maybe anything, so we don't waste time going all the way back through it. And also what the rationale is that I heard tonight about guaranteeing proffers for next to the last townhome. That really, I'm not sure why that would be appropriate, but we'll give them a chance to let us know. So, ma'am, we'll let you start.
Okay, I know we're supposed to get a school report today,
Yeah, they're currently meeting as we
Right.
speak to
Yeah.
discuss the impact.
okay, so we won't have the answer to that question until
No, yeah,
after.
I'm hoping that tomorrow, I'm in touch with a gentleman there, Robert Boyd, and so I'm hoping that he will give me an update on what was discussed tonight as early as tomorrow morning. I'll circle back with him, and then I will send all of you guys the email with that information before our meeting. Hopefully, I'll have it to you guys by Friday. But if you guys have questions regarding that, please let me know, and I'll try to get more answers by the 18th.
Great. Okay, and then as far as the county goes, they were requesting more green space. We don't have a colorized big version of, we do, oh, wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Because I have a couple of questions about different areas.
We
Okay.
have this on the back.
Oh, they have a board. Oh, wonderful. Oh, we have, oh, look at that. Lovely.
Yeah, they got this one right here.
Okay.
It's the same on the back of the packet we can see. A little
Right, but it's,
That's
I,
fine.
I don't need this.
I don't need these.
I apologize, the larger copies did not get to you before this evening.
You're good. We had them, so
Okay.
no excuse.
So the county and the green space, the county had requested that more green space be added to the plan. Has the developer come up with any ideas as to where they could add the green space?
So I'm going to let them discuss that when they come up, but as you see what's added on here, is the landscaping they intend to put in.
Right.
You'll have a small green space, it appears, between the townhomes and where the hotel or assisted living facility will go. You'll have a little bit in between the townhomes, but I'm going to let them expand on their ideas for that.
Okay, and then the Bailey property is R1, and that butts up to the B2. And I know they're supposed to have a 20-foot setback, right?
Yes.
There's a small part of the retail. Is that going to be possible? The side and the rear yard of that?
Looking at it without exact measurements on here,
It's hard,
it's
right?
hard to tell.
Right.
But I believe it's definitely 15 feet. We can have them clarify, but I think it is a possibility. And I mean, certainly we want to protect that residential piece that continues right there,
Yeah,
up against that retail. So
okay, so,
I think that's a very valid.
okay, so, I'll wait until then they come up to ask questions. Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll.
I know that Marchand spoke about the phasing. I see the phasing in here. Bob Weir had warned about the phasing, but I don't see that the new phasing conforms at all to the comments that were made. From what I understand it, the problem would be the houses to be built first, and then if there's not enough money or some other person comes in, then it just doesn't get done. So that's still out there for me as a difficulty. And I just want to say, last meeting, I kept on hearing a lack of clarity between the difference of by right and SUP. Because yes, a restaurant is by right, and no, a drive-through restaurant is not by right. A special use is different than by right. So you can have a restaurant, but you can't have it drive through there. That's why we have SUP. So I just wanted to say on the record that there is a very big difference between by right and SUPs. And I guess my last comment is I really question the propriety of having a firm write our comprehensive plan, or revise it. It's supposed to come from the people and the Planning Commission and the Planning Commissioner. It's not supposed to be written by someone outside to meet their needs. It's supposed to meet the needs of the people of Haymarket. So the complete propriety of having this put in here as part of our packet, I find astounding. I guess that's my last comment for now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carroll.
I want to echo especially the last thing that Mrs. Carroll said. The comprehensive plan will be written, I believe, by the members of the Planning Commission, the Town Council, and the people. To have someone decide that these are the words that should be in there in order that this particular plan would somehow fit more adroitly into this concept. That hasn't even been done. The comprehensive plan needs to be done. Perhaps it will be changed that way, but it shouldn't be done simply because B&K Blankbridge has made the suggestion or offered it. A couple of other points that stand out. The traffic impact study you said was done this morning. The school impact study is something that's happening tonight. We still haven't heard from Dominion as far as where they're. We have?
Yes, back in February, and back in February, we had a meeting with Dominion and the developer. They actually came out here from Richmond, and the developer met with them, and Jerry and myself were in that meeting, and Dominion had agreed they're going to do an underground line, and that has been since February. Their plans have not changed there. So they are actively working with the developer. They have some agreements there on what easements Dominion needs to put the line in, when they need to do it, what part of the phasing it's going to be done. So they are in active communication with Dominion. It is going to be an underground line through that portion. And that happened back in February, the beginning of February.
But that does not show up on this, am I mistaken? And I'm just not seeing it?
On
This plat?
The plat?
Yeah.
it is not put on the plat. It can be. This is kind of just the concept for the development, since it's an underground line. The only thing, if it were to be put on the plat, the only thing you would be seeing is dashed lines showing an easement similar to a site easement. You wouldn't see any.
Necessary, though, to know where that line is in order to find out, because isn't there supposed to be an easement of, what, 12 feet or 20 feet from that underground line to your first buildings?
I would have to look at the exact distance you would need from the building, but the easement, if I may. And I'll have them clarify this, thank you. But the easement will run in this grassy area. It does not go up under here quite yet. The only portion it's going to go under is the parking here. Dominion has okayed that and said that the lines can go under the parking. This building has been bumped forward to already accommodate that. It comes over to here and goes out. So we can have the easement lines drawn on and added. The developer can also speak to exactly what is going to be on top of that easement, what they've discussed with Dominion, but it is not going to be under homes, it's not going to be under the hotel, and it is not going to be under the daycare. It's going to be up in this area here. So, but that can certainly be a recommendation to have the developer put that easement on there.
Okay, thank you. I had one more concern or question, and I think it does relate to the traffic, and it more or less is a matter of the dominoes. The traffic was initially presented to us as being somewhere in the 12 to 14,000 car range prior to the idea of putting 79 townhouses in here. But the 79 townhouses can only be built if the zoning is changed. So basically, that traffic study is right on the brink of being too many cars for too small an area and too much of a time. And all of it is contingent upon having a change in the zoning from 2R1 from B2. Is that correct?
So the traffic study will have in it the changes to the residential. It's also going to have in there if the site were to remain all commercial, and you'll have that higher use. So it has
Yes,
that comparison.
That's basically what it comes down to. If that does not get changed, we were speaking of by right buildings at the last meeting. Well, there is no by right to put up 79 townhouses. There needs to be a change in the zoning in order for those 79. There hasn't really been an argument yet presented in the narrative for doing that, short of saying, well, these people will supply the financial wherewithal for these businesses to make it. I don't know if 79 homes are going to be able to keep 3 restaurants, 4 restaurants, a bank, an automotive, a couple of retails, and a medical thing. That's not going to happen. But, Steve?
Has the townhouses turned, or am I missing something here from the original plan? Where's Fayette on this?
So Fayette Street runs right here.
Okay.
You have all of the properties in Sherwood Forest. The townhomes have not turned. There's still
Okay, so that's, point out Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest
Okay,
is
so
right
that hadn't changed. I missed that. Okay, that's good. I will tell you, the comments, you can go ahead and put it down, sir. That's good. Thank you. The comments that have come to me, and certainly my reservations as well, or the SUPs, or the fast food restaurant. I will just tell you, even citizens I don't even know that stopped and were kind enough to say they voted for me, this and that, and I appreciate that. But I have not had one person come up to me and say they want a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. Not one. In fact, it's quite the contrary. It's been just the opposite. Same thing for the auto parts. I mean the auto repair. I guess I have a question, two basic questions, and then I'll shut up. Caps don't play tonight, do they?
Just
So I
tomorrow
don't-
night at 8. If it was, I would keep you to the
I would
time,
be
so.
quiet. Timeline-wise, when will we see the final development plan? At what point in time will we know the plan about what's going in?
When the site plans are submitted after approval is given for the rezoning, if it's given, and for the SUPs again, if they're given. So then when the site plan is submitted, preliminary, it'll come to the planning commission. That's when you'll have kind of this final development plan.
What
You'll have-
timeline? I understand that.
Right.
What are we looking at, timeline-wise?
It
Here,
all, it all depends when planning commission can make their recommendation to the council. If you guys make that recommendation in June, council will have their discussion of the project. They will make a decision. If best case scenario, if that happens in July, I think the applicant could get you site plans as early as August. Worst case scenario, if council takes a month or two, or you guys, wait to the 60-day timeline to make your decision, it could be September, October before you get a set of site plans.
okay, thank you.
All right, Emma, I do have one question on the last packet. I just want to make sure we're clear on what is by right, and what is special use permit. I'm looking under B2 Business Commercial District by right uses. It says residential accessory apartment, miscellaneous civic, and under commercial, second column, last bullet point, restaurant, fast food, general mobile, and small. So right now, B2, they have by right fast food restaurants, correct?
No
Yes.
drive-through.
It just
Right.
cannot have a drive-through.
But they could have a fast food restaurant, but it's the SUP for the drive-through.
Correct. It's and the reason for that is to make sure that the traffic on the site works, that the driveway for the drive-through is set up so that you have a nice flow of traffic. You're not impeding Washington Street. You're not impeding any entrances or exits to other businesses. So it's the fact of you want to make sure the stacking is right.
Correct.
And you don't have that issue.
Right. I just want to make sure, clarify that we all know, they have by right for a fast food restaurant. It's the drive-through.
Drive-through is the SUP.
Right.
Because,
And that's why you have
Yes.
an SUP for a bank drive-through, and for that very
right,
reason.
but I just want to make sure the citizens know they have by right for a fast food restaurant, but they don't have by right for a drive-through. I think we need to make that distinction.
It is a planned interchange park, so.
So, I mean, again, we're bound to our ordinances, and then we have SUPs, and that's why they have them.
But that's why, as Steve said, many of the people have spoken to us against the drive-through.
Sure.
They do not want the SUP. They understand the restaurants, and they accept that,
Right,
but the drive-through is the problem.
right. I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
But I've heard citizens say we don't want another fast food restaurant. On our books, they're allowed to have a fast food
I'd
restaurant.
like to have the sit-down restaurants is
Correct.
what I'm hearing, and I've explained that too, that by right, exactly what we said, I won't reiterate, but yeah,
Right.
we can, the fast food restaurants, by right, they can put it, it's just the drive-through, that's the heartburn.
Right. All right.
May I address one comment? The comp plan, I understand what you're saying about it is not up to a firm to write it. When you submit any kind of rezoning that doesn't meet our comprehensive plan, we have two different applications. We have one that you're asking for rezoning that meets our comp plan. That would be For example, somebody who, we have a planned land use map, they want transitional commercial, they're going from R1 to TC. In this instance, they're going from B2 to R2, and that does not meet our planned land use map. That is a planned interchange park, so part of our application requirement is the applicant has to write a letter to the town requesting the town, so the planning commission, to amend the comprehensive plan to allow for what they're requesting. So it's not that the firm is rewriting our comprehensive plan, that's part of the application process that they had to submit that letter. And in that letter, it was mentioned residential moderate density. In our comprehensive plan, we have two types of land use that are residential. We have residential low density, that's everything that's R1. And then in our comprehensive plan, we call anything that's R2 residential moderate density. So that's a term that we actually already have in our comprehensive plan. And so that's why that language was in there. So I hope that kind of clarifies some of the issue there, and I can clarify that more later. It is the Planning Commission's job to rewrite our comp plan. That's our goal for our work session. We'll do our outreach to the citizens. That's all a town thing. We will be doing that. We will be working for our citizens to redo our comp plan, not a outside firm like this.
All right, let's have the applicant address some of these concerns, see what they've done since our last meeting. Again, we're not going to vote tonight. We are going to have a continuation.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have just one other question that they can address. At what point, I'm tough on timelines. At what point in time, when will we know whether we're going with a hotel or assisted living? That's a big question I'm getting out there too, because there's a large number of, there's a big difference in vehicles and just the type of business, so.
I'm sure, sir, that you've been writing this down and prepared. So why don't you just go down the list, and then we'll let you field some questions.
All right, thank you very much. For the record, I'm Gifford Hampshire with the firm of Blankenship and Keith, and I represent the applicant. And to the extent I can't answer questions, we have our team here with us with our various specialties. We have Mike Massey from Ross, France. We have Chad Bard from Gorov Slade, which is our traffic engineer. And Mike is with our civil engineers. And of course, we have Mr. Wooten and Mr. Levine here also from the corporation, from the applicant, to answer any sort of questions like the one that Mr. Shannon just answered. Part of what I'm going to say will echo a little bit of what Emily said, because I do need to echo what she said about the letter on the comp plan, because we do hear that as a concern of the commission. And the comprehensive plan, keep in mind, is a guide that does not regulate development. And ideally, the zoning ordinance and the actions that the planning commission takes should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And that's exactly why Ms. Flockhart says that the procedure in this jurisdiction, as with many jurisdictions, is for an applicant, to the extent an applicant is requesting a rezoning that is inconsistent with the current comprehensive plan, to propose a comprehensive plan amendment. Now, that doesn't mean that the applicant writes the comprehensive plan amendment. It is by definition referred to this commission and the council to do that. And if you read the second paragraph of the letter that we sent in, we state that we understand, in fact, that the Planning Commission is in the midst of a 5-year update of the comprehensive plan, and that this should be referred to the commission in that regard. It's worth noting that legally the town and other localities can rezone in contradiction to the plan. They don't have to be consistent, but it is recommended that the zoning be consistent with the plan, and that is why we have submitted this request. That's one thing we submitted. Now, we did hear last time, we were before you, of course, on May 21, and we heard the concerns that we've discussed tonight. And in response to those concerns, we've done a couple things in the proffer statement that's before you in a red line form, and we submitted even a second version of that just tonight to accommodate some of the VDOT concerns that Ms. Lockhart discussed earlier. The most significant one of which, I think, was the concern about phasing. And if you look at the proffer statement, what we have now is a breakdown, a specific breakdown into 2 phases to accommodate the legitimate concern that the applicant might build all the townhouses and give none of the commercial and none of the street improvements. And in order to do that, we have tied that phasing to those street improvements which are listed in the revised proffer statement going in, and also at least 15,000 square feet of the retail going in prior to the time that the 79th townhome unit, the occupancy permit for that unit is pulled. Now, I did hear earlier Mr. Marchand's concern, well, you could pull 77, you could pull 78. We're going to want to build all the townhouses, but you can certainly kind of divvy it up and parse it as much as you want, but I think it's a reasonable thing to assume that the developer is incentivized to build those townhouses. And that's precisely why the council and the planning commission are concerned about building the townhouses before any of the commercial goes in. So we're going to build those townhouses because it's in our interest to do so. But the point is that the benefit the town is getting is we're not going to do that before you get the things that are in the public interest, and that is those street improvements that are listed and also a good deal of commercial retail. And we hope to do more. The second phase is going to include the signal justification report for the signal at the main intersection. And the first phase will also include the main spine road that will go back to the back of the developments. And that will ensure that we're not going to build just a little piece of it and not give access to the pad sites in the back. So you're going to get those things. And then the second phase is going to include the signal, which will include this thing called the signal justification report. The idea there is, as has been explained to me by our traffic engineers, you don't want to do the signal justification report before you have enough critical mass in the development to know that you're likely to get the warrant for the signal. So we don't want to do that too early in the development because it will fail. We want to make sure we have enough mass out there to do it. We have also included in phase 2 the hotel/daycare center and the child daycare center, the nursery back there. In answer to Mr. Shannon's question about when maybe the applicant can speak to that, we are still in search of users, and it's a chicken and the egg sort of thing. We don't want to lock ourselves in until we find a user, and the user will really dictate that. And we've heard the concerns from the town that it would really like a hotel, but thus far we haven't been able to nail that down. And I would urge the commission, when looking at all of this, to balance the legitimate concerns about certainty, which Mr. Marchand Snyder talked about, with the flexibility that any developer needs in order to attract users and to adjust to whatever those particular plans of the users are, which will be nailed down at site plan. And with respect to that concern about certainty, you heard Mr. Snyder say candidly that the site plan will be the mechanism by which these improvements will be nailed down. So when we come in with the site plan, assuming we are successful in the entitlement, in the rezoning and the special use permits, the site plan will be submitted, and that will contain all of the detail, and it will also require, as a matter of pulling permits once it's approved, that the improvements in phase 1 be done in sequence. Let me just talk a little bit about the buffering. We talked about that a little bit in Ms. Lockhart's presentation. We have submitted this colorized plan that you see below me and which you have at your places and which you have electronically as well in response to the concerns that were raised on the 21st. The buffering against Sherwood Forest was always there. It remains there. The buffer between the townhouse and the commercial section is right here, and it does conform with the required buffer of 25 feet. And with respect to the green space, we have converted what used to be a stormwater management pond right here between the hotel assisted living and the townhouses to basically a park with green space and areas with trails and where people can go and walk and recreate. And we have an easel. Thank you. So that's what we've done on open space, and we think that's a big improvement.
Let me ask you a question right there.
Right.
Stormwater management. There's no plans to try to run the stormwater management into the existing stormwater management between Sherwood Forest and your property there, is there?
No.
Okay.
No. And the stormwater management will be underground. What used to be, it'll be underneath that part.
Yeah, that's nice.
And
Okay,
underground.
thank you.
Which is a significant additional expense, but it's worth it to get that green space. The proffer statement has also been buffered in order to make explicit which is implicit in response to the concerns that were raised on the 21st about architectural elevations, colors, construction materials, and those sorts of things. Namely, that you will get, the town will get another shot at that. We'll get a shot at that, a very detailed shot at that, through the Architectural Review Board and the public hearings that will be held with that body. Because each use, the town's ordinance says that each use requires a certificate of appropriateness that will be issued by the ARB after public meetings by that body. That would also be incorporated into the site plan after those certificates, to some extent, before those certificates are requested. With respect to the VDOT comments, we've worked very hard, including today, to address the VDOT comments. We got VDOT comments yesterday, and our team met with VDOT this morning, as Ms. Lockhart noted.
Who did you meet with,
We met with the transportation, Northern Virginia Transportation.
name-wise? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
We met with them, and Mr. Bard can explain more if needed. But basically, the bottom line is that we came away from that meeting with VDOT content that we had addressed those comments. There are some issues with respect to the timing of signals and whether those, the timing of signals will be adjusted in order to maximize traffic flow. There will be a study of that at an appropriate trigger that's set forth in the proffers, namely after 75% of the commercial use has been issued, and also the 79th townhome. The theory is the same with respect to the traffic justification report, and that is you want a certain critical mass out there before you do that study in order to make sure that it's realistic of what the ultimate condition will be. So VDOT agrees with us that that late stage is the time to evaluate those triggers. There are also some turn lanes that are for which we need some waivers between a couple of the intersections, and we will submit a waiver request for that. If the waiver request is not granted, the proffer say we will work with the town to come up with an appropriate design that will work, and with that will be implemented in the site plan. The drive-through uses. Again, I think it's worthy of note, and I was just asking Mr. Barrett about this, the discussion about the difference between fast food restaurants, which are a use allowed by right, and fast food restaurants with a drive-in. True, one needs a special use permit. It's really just for the drive-in component of it, for the reasons Ms. Lockhart stated. But it's a very interesting point, and I think a very significant point, that the traffic generation rates for fast food restaurants without a drive-in and fast food restaurants with a drive-in are not different. If anything, the traffic generation rates for a restaurant with a drive-in are less, I'm told, than without the drive-in. So we don't want the commission or the public to be under a misunderstanding that somehow if you add the drive-in, you're going to get more traffic, because that's not the case.
Where did you get that information from?
I got that from our traffic engineer.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear that. I certainly do not believe that.
I look at
Neither do I, to be honest with you, but we've done many, my name is Chad Baird with Grove Slade. We've done many traffic studies, and when you look at a fast food with drive-through and a fast food without drive-through, the fast food without a drive-through, the volume actually goes up. We had to fight this in Fairfax County to try and not do a traffic study, because we had to put a restaurant within the inline shops,
and the traffic was actually higher. We were trying to prove to them that it wasn't, but we would have to go out and do actual manual counts. But ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers manual that does all the formulas that we look at actually shows some of the volume goes up. Depends on the peak hour, but some of the volumes go up. What I would say is it's very similar. The reason for the SUP is to make sure you're looking at the stacking, make sure cars aren't backing out into Route 55, make sure the parking circulation is correct. I don't, the volume is about the same.
I'd have to see those studies. I know I'll speak for me anyway. I'd want to see that. I find that hard to believe. I sit and I look at Chick-fil-A as an example, and I got to tell you, the majority of their customers are drive-through. And I know it's frustrating when you pull up to a restaurant and there's no seats in there. You may turn around and leave or something like that. But I'm certainly not calling you a liar. Please understand. I'd have to see that.
It's hard for me to even come up here and say that. I mean, we all drive to restaurants. We see the volume. But,
Sure.
ITE shows that it's similar. They're similar.
If there were studies there, it'd be nice if we could get copies of those. I would certainly.
Do you have copies of those?
I can punch them into the formula and send them out to you. I don't have them with me tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to see the actual studies, because that's, good thing is working for VDOT, I can follow up on that from our side of the two. I'm real curious, because I just find that hard to believe. So.
If you could provide us some of that, if you send it to Katie and myself, I'll take care of forwarding it on to the commission.
Because perception is reality for a lot of people, and just the perception now is that the numbers that it's going to increase, and that's what I'm hearing from the folks, again, for all kind of reasons. In fact, we're walking town, we don't want the additional traffic, on and on and on, but, okay, thank you.
I will absolutely. I'll show comparisons. I'll try and, I think they have where the studies are. You can narrow them down to the northeast, northwest,
Okay.
mid-Atlantic, so the new 10th edition does all that stuff. So
Sure.
I think that'd be very helpful.
And and depending on where the study is. The study down in Lynchburg is going to be different than the study up here. So those studies wouldn't, as far as I'm concerned, don't hold water.
And when they were done. Some were
Exactly.
done in 1980, some were done in 1990.
Exactly. So the most recent studies in Northern Virginia is what I would be interested in looking at.
I'm not sure IT has specific to Northern Virginia. It narrows it down to mid-Atlantic is what it does.
Yeah. Well, it would need to be this type of situation. Again, Salem, Lynchburg, those areas wouldn't interest me in the least, because they don't have the amount of people and traffic that we do in Northern Virginia. That's what I'd want to see. So, okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. On the parcel 1C, the Western restaurant with the drive-in? Okay, well, to me, it's a very, very convoluted.
Yeah, that one.
Configuration. That, and then also the Eastern Restaurant drive-through in the parcel 1D. You're coming, people are going to come from Washington Street, make the right, and then make another right. And this, to me, the traffic, it doesn't make sense. Because if you were to make the traffic go around the longer end, instead of making the right away, the traffic may back up right onto the road that connects.
So we'll stick
that,
with this
that
parcel?
one, yeah, so if you.
Turning right?
Right, you drive in.
Drive in
You're gonna make
here.
a right to go in, but then you're gonna make another right. It makes no sense. If you continued it one way to go around the other side of the restaurant, then we probably wouldn't have things backing up onto that lane,
I'm not
if that's
following around.
possible. Right, yeah. They'd give you a lot longer
Oh,
of a
that's-
path.
You'd have to flip the building and the
Right.
building front.
Yeah.
That's,
It's not built yet, right?
That'll be something that can be looked at more in site plan, but I understand your concern on that, but again, these are concepts.
Right, yeah, I'm just saying so that it wouldn't back up onto that,
We have added
roadway.
stacking spaces.
But Chick-fil-A, yeah, I know, you don't know what goes on here.
we can definitely look at that through, especially through
Thank
site
you.
plan, but the only thing I will say from a traffic circulation standpoint, yes, you're doing this immediate right,
Yeah.
but your flow now is a one-way out and there's no conflict. If you flipped it and and you had to come around this way,
You
the
could-
traffic leaving now has to cross the traffic coming in. So
Right,
there's
yeah.
conflict
You
there.
put a
So
stop sign in.
those are things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. My concern is it would be backing up onto the road. And then, could you address the Western restaurant? It's just, I
See,
don't
and
know.
that, Mike Massey on Cross Branch, again, this is
Yeah.
a concept of what the group is looking to do out here. We get into final site plan,
Right.
that will be looked at a little more detailed.
Yeah.
We've looked at it in detail now, feel it can work, but we know that at site plan, they're gonna get another opportunity to look at it.
Right.
And we'll have an opportunity to kind of refine it, and make it a little better circulation.
The one leg that kind of comes towards, is that, they're coloring it green, is that concrete, or is that
Well, right now, we're
grass?
talking
or-
right here, that,
Yeah.
we're just showing that grass.
Oh, okay.
So you got an interparcel connection.
Right,
The Chick-fil-A traffic would then kind of come around and then they would stack.
yeah, I
They stay
just-
out right now. They would stack and the drive-through would obviously be on the
other
western
side,
side.
yeah, just, it seems a little, I don't know, convoluted.
Excuse me, on that southwest corner, is that an opening to the Chick-fil-A? Is that what you just said, or did I misunderstand?
Yes,
There's two
yeah.
interparcel connections to Chick-fil-A lot next door, one closer to 55 and then one at the back. Those
Okay.
are actually in place for us to connect to.
I see.
And your point about the volume being the same, and I know there may be studies brought, the volume of traffic being the same with a drive-through and with a not drive-through restaurant, for me begs the question, why have a SUP anyway? Because if you're going to have the same amount of people going there, and the drive-through is the thing that is bothering everybody in town, why have a drive-through if you're going to have the same volume of people, which generates the same amount of money for the town? So I'm just throwing that out theoretically.
Just a couple of things on that. The primary reason, and this is set up through each town and jurisdiction, what they set it up each differently, was, again, to look at stacking, just like the comment that you said, to make sure that we're not coming in and having a drive-through right off of 55. We want to make sure it's put in so that stacking is dealt with. Make sure parking is squared away so that you're not having to cross over where the queuing lanes are, where people are stacking up to get into the drive-through. Those are the primary reasons. There's probably others that I'm missing, but those are the primary reasons that an SUP is brought forth for drive-throughs. Architecture and other things are brought up as well. But I have our memo for the comparison of by right versus non-by right. I can bring this up to you if you want to see it, but we have fast food without a drive-through, 6,000 square feet, which again could be done by right. In the AM would generate 377 peak hour trips. And then in our study, fast food with drive-through, 8,000, which is 2,000 more square feet, and this is just the AM, would generate 322 peak hour trips. So it's less. Now, on the flip side, the PM actually goes up a little bit. That's why I'm saying it's comparable. It's depending on where you're looking at things. So,
I just have one other quick question. I thought this is where Kathy was going to. On the Western restaurant there, you said that's open into the Chick-fil-A parking area there?
yes, sir.
Have y'all seen that? Have you seen the congestion there
Well,
on a normal day? So is that part of the site plan to change that entrance area there and all?
May I also, add, when you speak to that one, will you also speak to the one in the back of Chick-fil-A?
There's one here.
Yes, sir. And I'm just saying the front one, the one in the front now. Right now with the configuration, the way it's set, that's why I'm saying, would there be any site plans there to change that entrance up? Because the way it is right now, that is a cluster. On a normal day, just a normal day out here, traffic trying to get in and out of there. And that's why I was just wondering if that was going to be part of the site plan to open up that entrance exit there.
On the Chick-fil-A property?
Yes, sir, and where you're going onto the Chick-fil-A property, you're going to have to take a left to get out to Washington Street. And what I'm saying right now is, that is a mess right now. It's
We don't have to.
Ability to do anything on somebody else's property.
exactly, but that's my concern of having an entrance there. Because you're going to increase the number, and like I said, maybe there's a plan for it, and if there is, that's good. But I'm just saying, right now, if there was an opening there, and additional cars were trying to cut through that area by Chick-fil-A to get out to Washington or to go down to CVS, That's 66 right there. That's I-66 during rush hour. Am I missing, I mean,
I mean, that can be something that we can look at a little closer. We do have the inner parcel in the back. But these-
yes, sir, I would say, just definitely take a look at that, because just getting that in and out of there right now with the amount of traffic you have it's a real mess.
During peak hours, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes during non-peak hours, even though they're depending, with the summer here, school's going to be out, and a traffic study during school is different than a traffic study during the summer because of Chick-fil-A, because of the amount of kids, and trust me, I take my grandkids there. But I was just wondering if, because that definitely needs to be looked at. I can't see an increase of cars coming from the property there into that area.
The hope was actually the reverse.
Yes, sir.
It was to help Chick-fil-A, to give them an access to the signal we're proposing. So if they can't make a left out, that they now have
Well, they're
access to
crossing traffic, though, then. They're crossing traffic, people on the ingress, so
Sure, we can look at it.
just,
think
yeah,
we
I would
need
just
the inner
say,
parcel,
look at
but-
that, because that would certainly, at least for me, would be a major concern because of the congestion there right now.
Sure.
So in adding more cars and traffic in there, I don't see that as a plan at all. But you guys, I'm just a simple soldier doing my job up here, and you're the smart ones, but that's something that would have to be looked at.
You know, as you know, VDOT encourages interparcel connectors between properties to have a parallel flow to the main road, and that's what this is designed to do.
They do, and I will be talking to Yao myself tomorrow, as a matter of fact, because I definitely have some concerns there. So, okay, thank you.
Sorry to just add on that. We do have to meet throw distances. There's other stuff that we have to meet.
Understand, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
So we will get the traffic studies that substantiate the drive-through versus non-drive-through, because perception is reality.
Correct. Yes.
And the question is, would people go to a restaurant if it didn't have a drive-through? I would suspect they would still go to Chick-fil-A if we didn't have lanes there. So we just need data, and we need, well, I'll hold my comments to the end. All right, sir, go ahead.
I think we've pretty much covered everything. One thing I wanted to mention on the schools, and this is something that I mentioned last time, that we heard from Mr. Boyd at the schools, to whom Emily was referring, and that is that when you look at the school student enrollment figures that are currently on the books in the comprehensive plan, they actually already contemplate even a greater development than this, because they were done with the thought that the fairgrounds application that came in at 2014 would go forward, and we're actually reducing the number of townhouses from that. Now, the school board is meeting, I think, as we speak, to review the development impact statement, and we'll know more about that as that comes through. But I think that's a significant point. I think that Dominion, again, as Ms. Lockhart said, we have coordinated, and Mr. Massey can talk more about this, but we have coordinated with Dominion already our plan. As Ms. Lockhart said, we pushed our development back to accommodate the Dominion easement. We don't actually show the easement on this plan, but it is within that green space area, and there were a couple meetings on that. I think I've come to the end of my list. Let me know if I've missed anything.
I'm glad to hear about the stormwater management. I think the plan there, that's a win-win situation.
Right, we thought so too.
Really, I applaud you for that.
And sir, can you speak to the guaranteed proffers? Because a lot of citizens had questions about tot lot screening, sidewalks. Last time it was mentioned, it was potential. And what phasing the tot lot screening and sidewalks would go in?
Well, the tot lot would be, first of all, the proffer, let's see, talk about the tot lots, which would be proffer number 6. The applicant shall reserve the open space or area shown in the GDP as park/common area for possible recreation or tot lots. That reservation would need to be done through the site plan process, which would be done during phase one by definition, and through deeds of easement and dedication that would have to be submitted before we could get our permits to get going, before we could get site plan approval. So that is accommodated here through the requirement that we have a site plan that is consistent with the GDP.
All right, well, let me ask you this question. How, in your opinion, how would this read if you struck possible and it said for recreation or tot lots? Because here's what I see happens a lot of times in HOAs and POAs. They make promises, not saying you would do this, but they make promises about open space and gazebos and tot lots, and then when they build it out, they don't follow through if it's not specifically stated.
I don't think we'd have any problem with that. I mean, the intent is to reserve it for
Right.
that area.
And I'm not saying your intent, I'm not saying you're not going to honor your word, but again, we need to do our due diligence for our citizens, and I heard that was a big concern about potential versus actual follow-through.
Right.
I think that would go a long ways in helping alleviate some of the citizens' comments.
Right. I think that the understanding here is that this area could be used for that, or it could be used for other green space purposes. I think that was intended to give, indeed, the town some flexibility as to what it wants to see in there. But that would be the downside to locking it in, that it would have to be used for tot lots as opposed to other things. But recreation, on the other hand, could be a broad term, so I
Right.
like that point.
I'm saying if you struck possible where it had for recreation or tot lots, it's locking you into proffering for a recreation area or a tot lot. I don't think the citizens would particularly care either way. I think what's giving some of them, that at least have talked to me, is the word possible.
Correct.
Because it also shows that, according to the language, it may or may not happen. You're saying it will, it may happen or will, but that one word changes the whole sentence.
I don't think we'd have a problem with removing possible. Right. We can take that out.
All right, thank you. All right,
I'm Don Wooden with Melodon Group. I came up before you, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, so I appreciate you all bearing with us. I wanted to give a little clarity, if I may. I sit through a lot of these planning commissions and board type of meetings around the Washington DMV, and I think it's important, I think, for me to kind of comment. I sometimes wish we did more simple development. If I came before you today and said, I'd like to build a restaurant, on a 1.5 acre lot, I think, we all could do that pretty quickly and understand it and get through it. With large mixed-use development, the struggle that we always have is how do we design and how do we have flexibility in order to fulfill future users' needs. It's always the chicken or the egg. Not often do we have the opportunity to know what uses we're going to get. So it is our intent, and what we're trying to accomplish with you folks, and always, is to say we're not certain what we are going to have in terms of uses, but we want to be good citizens and we want to be a good partner for the town. And so what we want to do is focus on what we want it to be and what we want it to look like. So that's why, and this was kind of my crafting with the team, is it's important to me, and I think if you go on and look at some of our other projects, you'll see what we're talking about. It's important to me for us to build a very Class A project and to be proud of that. As I said, I live literally 15 minutes down the road, and I want it to be what we all want it to be. So as an example, I want everybody to decide on kind of materials. Are we going to use a certain amount of stone, a certain amount of brick, what kind of siding material, what kind of roofing material. That's important because we all want to know what that's going to be up front. It's also important for us, the developer, because now once you all, the ARB, reviews and approves what that material selection is going to be, it makes it easy for us. The biggest fight we have with users, the biggest fight is, imagine Sheetz comes to us and Sheetz says, I want to put a gas station here. We'd say, well, okay, and so the biggest battle we have is talking to them about their color red because they want what they want. So it's really helpful for us to be able to give them a approved architectural review, board approved color selection, material selection, and say, this is what we have approved. So within these guidelines, you can build those facades and build these buildings the way it's represented. It really is a good thing for us. So I think that's an important point. The other thing that I want to convey is the, let's see, where was my thoughts going? Oh, the phasing. So that was an important component, and I don't know if Giff answered that fully for you, but I think particularly for you, James, I think one of the question marks was, timing and on the phasing thing. It's important to note that we're talking about completion of. So what we're doing is a single-phased project. We're not intending to come in here and do multiple phases in this project. We're a single-phase developer. That's where we get the most value, and that's where we get the most value for the town, because we can come in and complete these projects. So under that phase, all we're saying here is that we want to release the builder on building their townhomes. At the same time, we're releasing our general contractor on doing all of the other site work and all of the other improvements to the site. And we're going to meet up, and we're going to have these things completed that we're proffering to. Not commencement, but completion prior to the 79th townhome permit. That's why we did it that way. Because otherwise, we're going to sit here and wait for who knows how long, right? Until the townhomes are completed before we would start or commence. We don't want to do that. We actually want to come in and do it on a simultaneous basis. So I think I just wanted to clarify on that. Let's see, what else? I want to talk about this real shift in restaurants. So we deal with a lot of restaurant groups, many national groups, but also some local groups as well. And I think in the mind's eye, we always, well, I know what your mind's eye sees is Chick-fil-A, because it's a new addition to the town. It's obviously a very popular place, and it's obviously driving a lot of people to go to Chick-fil-A. But the reality of the mind's eye with restaurants and with, let's call them drive-thrus, is really shifting very rapidly. I'll use a couple of points in turn. One is Starbucks. Let's talk about them for just a moment. Starbucks, as little as 3 years ago, would sign agreements with us and be happy to go inline or an end cap on a building, and they were fine with that. And I think most citizens would agree. Most citizens and most people would love to have a Starbucks. I mean, everybody likes their coffee. It's a good place to go and have our meetings. When we need to meet somebody at 10 o'clock, hey, let's hook up a Starbucks. We all do that. So about 3 years ago, Starbucks says, what can we do for two things? What can we do to serve our guests better? And what can we do to free up some additional space within our restaurant? One of their biggest issues was, unfortunately, those same people sitting there at 10 o'clock, ordering 1 cup of coffee and spending 3 hours meeting. So they go...
You don't have to order anything. You can just go sit there all night long for
You can.
no reason now. So,
Yeah, you can, exactly. But that's a good example. So now today, they own most, unless it's a very urban, very infill location, Starbucks will demand to us that they have a pickup drive-through lane, period. And that's just the way they work now. So that's one example. More current, let's move fast forward. We've got some other restaurants, which, again, I'm talking nationals. There's a lot of great regionals and locals that we could talk about, but, you know, we don't know if those come and go and who they are. So I'm just going to talk nationals. Today, you got restaurant chains like Famous Dave's, Zaxby's, which is coming out of the South, which we love, Panera Bread, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts. Many of those restaurants that used to be just pure sit-down restaurants that you'd go and purchase your things and leave, they're all demanding this pickup or drive-through because of convenience to their guests, period. Panera has even gone a step further now. They're saying not only do we want a pickup window, but we're also going to be providing delivery services to our guests. So you can order online, and now Panera Bread will deliver to your home. So you can see that this whole shift, and I think somebody commented about, I think it was you, said, you know, if Chick-fil-A didn't have a drive-through, you're guessing that people still would go. They would. Exactly, they would. But it's a convenience for the guest. So this whole shift in our mental vision about fast food is rapidly changed. I mean, we have full-service restaurants today that are saying we are going to require that you provide us with a pickup or drive-through lane. So that's happening a lot. Let's see, what else? You had mentioned in terms of the SUPs, and I know that this has been a kind of a crawl in the throat that, you know, we submitted the SUPs, they were vague in nature. I think it was you that, Ms. Carroll, you had mentioned here's one that was 50 pages long. The distinction of that is that was a user purchaser, and they were going through special use permit, and they knew exactly what they wanted and what they were going to be, and we don't. So what we're saying is that we're hoping the town will work with us to approve the SUPs, predicated on the fact that we're willing and wanting to have architectural review to say, here's color selections, here's material selections, here's colors, here's everything, roofing, everything that you need to know. And we will bind these uses coming forward to that. We'll say, here it is, it's the only approved, and that's what it's going to look like, other than your lighted sign on your building. And so that way we can go out and find those uses and get, you know, business happening. So I think, does that help? I just wanted to try to kind of help clarify.
It does for me. I would tell you, you're correct. Or as far as our ARB, they're going to be tough, and they should be. I know the drawings that you're coming up with and everything. I mean, it's got to fit our town.
Yeah.
And I know they're going to be tough on that. So I know you're doing your due diligence on that. And I'll just say, and I said this before, I am absolutely not opposed to. I'm 100% for the development of that. That's. You know, and I haven't heard anyone say, oh, we don't want, you know, we want to keep that parking for Haymarket Day and everything. I've heard no one say that, but just the concern, just understand, and I think you do, us sitting up here, we're speaking for the constituents out here, and it's not a personal feeling, at least from my perspective of Steve Shannon here, it's what I'm hearing from the citizens out there. So, as you educate, as you provide the stats to us, the studies and things, I mean, if I can go to my neighbors in Sherwood Forest and say, look at this study here, you know, a drive-through does not increase numbers of traffic and everything else, that may change their opinion too, may change my opinion. But facts speak. So that as we get that information and everything, that's really what we're after, and because we have to sell this to our constituents out here. You know, for us, because, so, anyway.
I know that Potbelly and Panera in Gainesville, they don't have drive-throughs. And to go along with your statement about how things are changing, we know Uber Eats and DoorDash, people can have anything delivered from any restaurant, where that's a service that's provided nowadays. So there is a scene for that versus people queuing up in lines like they are at Chick-fil-A, causing all sorts of traffic hassles and really impinging on the idea of a walking town that we have definitionally for Haymarket. So I know we're in changing times, but we've also seen how Gainesville operates with very well-defined traffic motions without SUPs, in fact.
Ms. Carroll, I don't know those uses. Do you know when those, like a Potbelly opened in Gainesville? Or?
I don't, it's just right over here at the gateway.
Okay.
There's a pot, and right across from it is a Panera. There's a whole, Five Guys, there's a whole lineup of restaurants, Famous Dave's. They're all there, and there's just adequate parking. People come, they park, and they eat.
They've been there much longer than 3 years.
Yes.
Well, so this is the killer of all development is when one of those stores open, a lot of folks will have a tendency to say, wow, that really came out of the ground quickly and opened. But the reality is that lease was probably negotiated and signed 2 to 3 years prior, and it just takes all that time. So if you just go back, 4 and 5 years to stores that were opened at that time, a good example is Starbucks. Starbucks was more than happy to do in-cap. In fact, you have one here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
where they were more than happy to sign a in-cap lease on a long-term basis just 3 years ago. And today, they will not open a store unless it's urban, very urban. They will not open a store unless it has a pickup lane in it. That's the way it works.
We have always, since we moved here, we've said this is a walking town. We heard that, I think, from our realtor when we bought a house here.
Mm-hmm.
This looks to me like this is a good way to die. If you're going to walk down here on this street, you're not going to walk to these restaurants. That's impossible. You just can't do it. It's going to be like the Gateway. It's going to be just huge masses of traffic flowing in and out. If this gets built, and, maybe it will,
So, Mr. Carroll,
we can't call ourselves a walking town any longer because we're putting up the white flag and saying, don't walk down here, folks.
Mr. Carroll, let me speak to that. I agree, walkability is very important, and I think it's what every planner wants and what frankly, every developer wants. What we do is we try to actually improve the walkability and the guest experience because we want to increase the stay intervals with our guests. It's super important. We do not like concrete jungles where it just simply brings them in and out and just circulates them because it limits the buying experience of the guest in the center. We want them to sit down and sip a glass of coffee or wine. We want them to go over and get their hair done. We want them to get their nails done because that's just makes good sense. And we are trying to improve upon what the town of Haymarket has already approved. You've approved this land for an interchange park. That's what this land is intended for. And what we're saying is we think that's has way too many demands on this parcel. I think that it would fail in many cases with vehicular, with everything about it. So we're actually with you on that. What we're doing is down zoning the property. We're saying, look, we think that a planned interchange park here is very, very high density. And with high density comes high vehicular loads. So everything you're going to see here is we're reducing all of those impacts substantially from what you all have already approved and planned this property for. So I would hope you would appreciate that rather than looking at it from the invert of that.
I want to make one suggestion that I've heard from a number of people. And the suggestion I keep on hearing is instead of a few fast food restaurants, why not at least one big classy restaurant? Where people could just come and it would truly be a destination place. And it would be a draw because, you know, I eat at Panera, I eat at other places, but they're not destination. I don't sit there for long, despite what, you know, a destination restaurant would be nice. Even something like part of the Great American chain or that would be, and these little things, they're certainly not compelling to me personally.
We actually, we're showing it here, I believe. Take the glasses off. Yeah, so in these two structures here, we actually are thinking exactly what you're thinking. We would love to have a full-service sit-down restaurant. Absolutely would. And we're hoping that they will come to Haymarket for all the reasons that we like Haymarket. But we don't know that today. You know, we just don't. We have a lot of restaurants that we do business with, and we have and we will be going to them saying, hey, here's a new opportunity for you once this is approved. We'll go to those folks and say, you know, we'd love to have you. You've got a store in Bethesda, you've got a store in Rockville, you've got a store in Arlington and a store in Sterling. It makes sense to just continue out west and have one here.
About Ruth Chris Steakhouse.
I had that question last night, and in fact, need to pass your information to a restaurant owner. In fact, my wife and I last night, and he said, wow, so I need to pass that information to you to contact him, but anyway.
You know, I know we'd very much like to have that.
I was going to say, as far as the SUPs for the drive-throughs, couldn't they be gotten once you've established that that's who's coming?
Unfortunately, it normally doesn't work that way well. If you're a drive-through use and you can go acquire a piece of property on a corner, it works okay because they're committed because they have acquired the property and they're going to take it through that process. But in a large mixed-use setting, they don't even want to spend the time with us to discuss it unless it's an approved use. In fact, part of the letters of intent that we get, it always says that we state and we agree that the use that's intended is an approved by right or an approved use. So they'll just leave us, and because there are other sites they could go to quickly and easily, and that's just an unfortunate, state of affairs.
I think it's important for the citizens too, and I'm with Mr. Carroll, so some of my comments may not seem that I am, but I mean, every project we've had, when we first came here, we moved into, I went totally blank.
Haymarket?
Well, Green Hill Crossing, there you go, sign of old age. And we were one of the first townhomes that were in there. Single family were built. Well, then Sherwood Forest came online, Haymarket Station, where I currently live, Villages of Haymarket, Alexander's Keep. And every subdivision built in this town, and I came to some of those meetings, it was always just going to increase traffic. So for the last, Villages of Haymarket was the next big development went in. It went in and started in '03 and was completed like '05. Then we just built 6 homes along Blight, and all I heard is it's going to back up, it's going to back up. I've lived in the same home since 2004, and the longest I've ever waited is 3 cars to get out. Walking town, there's zones to walking. By right, you could, and I'm not trying to make a definitive statement, but by right, they could upzone it. We're not going to walk to that. So I think this whole idea of walking town, why, we all want to walk, there's different zones to walk. The dog walkers are not going to go walk around a hotel. They're going to go through residential neighborhoods. So I think what we're looking for is smart growth to try to bring us up to where we need to be, but to minimize, but let's face it, growth is here. I mean, no one's been walking to that since the fairgrounds, since I was like 10 years old when we used to do little carnivals there. It's an empty lot. So I think we need to be smart, and most of us, and I've said this before, if we use the rationale, most of us would not be here because our homes would have never been built. So I think it's important for the citizens watching every subdivision going on in here. Haymarket Station, 60, Villages of Haymarket, we just increased to 50, Alexandra's Keep, Sherwood Forest. So it's been a consistent thing. It's always been. But we all somehow managed to get where we need to go. So, again, I think you've heard our concerns. I appreciate you working. We need, the traffic study, I think, would be helpful. And I'll keep my comments to when we meet again. But any other questions? And they're great questions.
Let me just address one thing that Commissioner Carroll brought up, and the walkability and everything. I think so much of it is going to, obviously, and I know you keep this in mind as you build, because that's, you want to be a good steward of this town, to help us out, is how the crosswalks are built, the type of signage. I know there's some areas that high traffic, but it's easy to walk around down there. And especially having a 25-mile speed limit, that helps. And having a police force that absolutely patrols out here. I'm probably not as concerned about the walkability as I am just making sure that it's safe out there, that it's built safely. And I can assure you that VDOT's going to do their due diligence in making sure the crosswalks, the lights, the signals and stuff are going to be right. So.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And to that point, we can't create a safety buffer mechanism for someone that's walking to our property, but once they get on the property, we certainly can, and we really work hard to make this a very walkable site that people will enjoy, that they'll get once they're here, they'll feel safe, they'll see there's going to be plenty of marked crosswalks, there's going to be wide paths, there's going to be wide walks, there's going to be, lighted very nicely at the evening. There's going to be, trees lined, the main drives and drive aisles. When they mature, there'll be nice canopied trees where it'll provide shade. So we want what you want in that regard, because we want to create a nice guest experience for the people coming to Crossroads Village Center. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, I would also like to reiterate that our comp plan has this property zone as planned, Interchange Park. It's focused around being so close to Route 66 and Route 15. And with that in mind, we have in the comp plan, in the verbiage, that the concept is this property is highway-oriented development. So if we follow our comp plan, if we do what we proposed when it was passed in 2008, it's never going to be a small town walking feel in this one site here. It's going to be a highway-oriented development. It's going to attract the cars. So it's going to be very, vehicular-oriented. I think that what they're proposing with the sidewalks on site, as you just mentioned, you can feel safe once you get on it. I think that's a benefit. It's a positive that we should really look at. So I just want the commission to keep in mind that our comp plan has it as a highway-oriented planned interchange park. So that with that comes cars, and that's not going to quite provide that walkability on this one site. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I don't disagree, but it's got to be done smart.
Right.
So that's
And
it.
sidewalks on both sides of Main Street would greatly help.
So, okay.
All right, all good questions. Any other questions? All right, so can you get with these folks and put in some bullet points of and have them for a work session?
Yes.
Oh, I did have, I'm sorry, just
Sure, go ahead.
one request. I know there was a big concern regarding the height of, hopefully, the hotel. Could there be some kind of physical rendition done of how that would sit on the property? I know people were, saying that the view shed is going to be ruined by the hotel. If we could show the public how it would sit on the property, I think that would be a bonus.
Okay, I can work with the applicant to provide some kind of pictures of coming down Main Street. I can see what their architects can work up, if anything, kind of imposing a building
You had said
on
it's
those
going to sit lower
images.
on the property, so it wouldn't be
Correct.
as tall.
Yes, I
So-
will work with them and see if we can develop something that kind of gives that view.
Okay, I think, a hotel would be nice. You have the hospital that sits cat-a-corner. Families, give them a place to stay. Medical conferences could be held there. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a good
That's a great
suggestion.
idea. Three-dimensional drawing
Yeah. it's a good
superimposed
suggestion.
against Bull Run Mountain, I think would help.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, with the view shed. Thank
Something
you.
to show. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Carroll, do you have any more
I do not.
questions?
I
Mr.
do not.
Carroll?
No, good for now.
Sam?
No, sir, spoken enough.
Well, these are good comments, and I appreciate all of you coming. I really do, and I appreciate your patience. We want the same thing you want. We just both have to make sure it's done right. And I think most of our citizens want what we all want, but they want it done right as well. So, all right, where are we at in this new business? Do we have any new business?
We do. We will be expecting in July, August timeframe to have several new site plans coming in for your review. So I want you guys to all be aware of them and be prepared. You will be receiving site plans for 3 single-family homes on Fayette Street across from the Dog Stay Out. You'll be receiving site plans for McDonald's. They're changing their drive-through to be upgraded. They're working on some plans to kind of bring their building up to their new standards within the franchise. And you may be receiving another SUP for the funeral home. The old bank building was up for auction, however, it was taken off the auction and someone is interested in purchasing it, so there is a contract. They have been in touch with the town, they've been in touch with me. We've had a kind of pre-application meeting just to discuss the SUP application, what would be required, what we'll be looking for, so forth and so on. And so that would be for a funeral home and crematorium. I'll keep you guys posted on that. There's no date on when that may come in, but that's just a friendly heads up for everyone to be thinking about. And I believe, nope, that's about it for new business.
They're going to use the drive-through as the viewing part? Have you seen those down
So
south?
They have them, yeah.
they will not be using the drive-through as the viewing part. They will be actually requesting to close in the drive-through to
Delivery.
expand the
We'll
footprint.
deliver the urn to your house. Hey, you talk about sit-down restaurants, a lot of them are going out of business. A lot of the chains,
There's still a waiting line at PF Chang's.
Yes, there's plenty of people at
but I'm
Ollie's.
saying,
Yeah.
the sit-down business, I'm not saying the concept, but a lot of the old standard sit-downs
Yeah, the
are
old
being replaced by new,
Chain restaurants. you're
right.
talking
You
about.
go to Gateway on a Saturday night, you have to wait no matter where you go.
Right.
All right, any I mean, the old business, I think we, okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
I do have just a couple updates on some old items I've been working on. I mentioned that I issued some letters to the blighted properties in town.
Yes.
Part of the letters require within a certain time frame that they submit a plan to me, so we could also be expecting some new plans for some of our blighted properties in town. So it's a very positive thing that I'm looking forward to, and I'm working with kind of our attorney and our business manager on all of our courses of action. So hopefully that will be something we can look forward to.
As far as the blighted property, is the old fire department included in that? Because
So-
that is a
Correct.
unsightly site.
There's some broken windows and some roofing issues, so that is included just because the maintenance of it needs to be addressed so that no creatures or, other things are getting in the structure. So yes, it is included.
Because I remember we had a potential a year or so ago, and they had done some studies, and it's full of mold, and there's a whole lot of issues going on with that building.
And I've reached out to the property owner of that building, and I've not received anything back from them yet, so I'm hopeful they'll come forward and talk with us, maybe look at something they worked on before, but right now I just haven't heard from.
Okay.
If they
that
don't answer,
individual.
what's the next step?
So if they don't answer, the next step is more official violation letters. So I'll work with our town attorney to draft those. Those will be sent out. And then from there, if we're still not receiving responses, it goes to the court system.
And if you mentioned this earlier, I apologize, I didn't hear it. The estimate that they were getting for the work across the street, is there any movement on that?
So across the street, they have a timeline to get back with me on, I believe it is June 21st.
Okay.
So within the next 2 weeks, I'll either receive a plan or I'll take the next step. I have not heard anything back from the gentleman who came in, who's working on estimates to draft up demolition applications.
I didn't know if y'all knew that had taken place or not, but.
So I had someone come visit me to verify some addressing, property owners, those kinds of things for the property across the street. Big Fred's, there's a small shed that's run down behind it, and then the house with no roof. And so they were looking at prepping a demolition application for that whole strip of the property. So
Including Big Fred?
Pardon?
Including Big Fred?
Yes, so what he was working on, he was an environmental assessment person, so he was working on the actual environmental studies. And I actually found a picture of when, in front of Big Fred, it had a BP sign, so I think at one point it was a gas station. And so there will be a little bit more work on an environmental assessment for that.
I mean, as much as we focus down here, this area up here is unsightly.
So I am actively working on it. It is a top priority, so that's just kind of an update on where we are with that.
All right. And then, sir, town council update?
We had that was our public hearing the other night, wasn't it? The tax, and we voted on the tax rate, so I think that was pretty much it. It was a very quick meeting the other night because the Capitals were playing. The Caps were playing those.
So the tax rate up, down, or same?
It passed.
Up, what is it?
It was the,
No, it went up.
oh gosh,
I believe we have our treasurer here.
yeah, Mr.
Mr.
Treasurer, could you
Gonzalez,
walk
can
up
I
this
ask
way?
you to come to
please?
the podium? You're not dressed. Come here. We want to get this right for the record, please.
Yeah. And what, as far as the tax rate and all?
Everything remained the same. In fact, the increase actually only comes because of the assessments. The county assessments were higher from prior years, but the tax rate remained the same from last year, which is 0.146.
Okay.
Your taxes will still go
Your taxes will go up.
That's because of our property.
Because of the assessments going up,
Properties
yes,
went up.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, when you sell.
Double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword,
Paying the
yes.
taxes. It's
It
not-
is, yeah.
And can I ask one question?
Sure.
Could you tell me whose idea it was to put a 30-day requirement on our decision?
That was, was not my decision. That was a resolution that was drafted to kind of help the developer. It's been a project that's been going on since 2014, so.
Not to us.
Not to us.
I'd like to know
So this-
whose idea was it to put, because that
That
tells us
I would
they
have to
have,
get back with you on,
Okay.
so I do not know that answer. That I will have to get back to you
because I feel there's no confidence in what we do to only give 30 days to something this important, and we're still collecting information, right? To me, it just,
It was the
It's
meaning.
60 days now,
of the
but it was
whole-
originally 30.
Yes,
yeah,
it was
how
the
are you
meaning of
supposed
the
to
planning
make
commission.
and do
It
the
was
back and
something
forth
that
then?
even members of the town council were not aware of the motion before it was actually on the floor. There was no discussion of it.
No.
And although things have been talked about since 2014, not this plan has been talked about.
Right.
And we had three canceled meetings that we could have talked about parts of this plan. So,
At those 3 canceled meetings, this was not ready, this was not submitted. It was submitted in April, and the moment it was submitted, I reached out to the planning commission to get
It
you
was
guys
new
the
to us.
information.
It's
and
new to
send it.
us.
So,
As of this past spring, nobody on this panel, unless Matt was part of the planning commission, and I don't believe he was, ever saw any of this before
So the-
May,
the
before May
Lidl-
17th.
So the Lidle application never
Never
came to
saw
the
it.
planning
never saw it.
commission.
We never
Never
saw it.
saw it.
Marchant never
It was
discussed the
talked,
TIA.
it was talked
it was
about.
talked about, but we
Never
never
even
got
heard of
plans.
Lidl.
It was a potential.
It was a grocery store, an unnamed grocery store.
That the ARB, from what I understand, they pulled out because of the requirements.
Okay.
I mean, I think at this point, with 60 days, with the information we're getting, I think it's going to work out. I'm not sure 60, 90, as long as we can get the right information. It's just we need to be cognizant of timelines. And again, the reason we didn't have those meetings is because when you call me, it's like, there's nothing to discuss, so why have a meeting? So the first time we all saw this, we all got it at the same time. And we extended from 30 to 60.
60, yes.
Which is still possibly not adequate, simply because if you're going to do due diligence about a massive
And
plan like
negotiate.
this, you should have no time limits, except the discussion time limits.
Well, I would agree or disagree, because the builder has to have some idea of when we're going to come. This town has a history of dragging things on. I think there has to be a give and take on timelines, because we've been guilty in the past of dragging builders on and on and on.
I don't think this particular board has been guilty of that at all.
I
I'm just saying
disagree.
history.
Yes, but this board has not done that.
Right.
And I think to have the town council come up with that particular resolution without even discussing it amongst themselves, some people didn't even know it was to be made who sat on the board. And all of a sudden, the planning commission has to come up with a decision in 30 days. We should have voted that night. End of discussion.
Well, I was one that voted yes on the 30, and then, and even realized what we were looking at, and being the liaison to the planning commission, realized 30 was just too short. And I had recommended the 60, and it was voted on. And then that's when we brought it up to, I believe, to the chairman, do we feel that the 60 days, and as he said, it's better than 30. So,
And I think in the 60, we can make a good decision as long as we can negotiate with.
and we get the information.
Right.
And I think right behind me are words such as transparency, inclusive, respectful, integrity, innovative, and I didn't feel the 30 days or the 60 days reflected that, frankly. I think that is was.
I think the
definitely-
motion didn't represent any of those things. It was insulting.
Yes.
It was insulting to the whole idea of a planning commission. You don't want a planning commission, you want a rubber stamp. And if the mayor were still here, I would say that to his face.
Okay, I think we need to remain professional, and we need to remain professional and respectful, and this is not the place to do that. So let's stay in our lanes and do what we're supposed to do. All right, moving on, Architectural Review Board update.
Since the ARB liaison's not here, we, typical business as usual, will be meeting June 20th and have a work session with the developer for the Crossroads Village to start the discussion on their design guideline book. And we'll also be discussing the new single-family homes here.
And that was June 20th, correct?
Correct.
All right. A lot of information. So you're going to get back with those folks, summarize what we've talked about. You're going to get the traffic study. I'm sorry, not the traffic study, but the drive-through rates. Yeah, and then you're going to work on, great suggestion, about superimposing what a hotel would look like at the prescribed height they're wanting up against what view shed.
Correct.
Okay. Was there anything else we're missing?
No, sir. That's it.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I will second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.